Hello friends, this is Surendra Sare and you are watching my YouTube channel. Well, today we are going to see about the story of famous character from the Bible, a narrative or historical narrative from the book of Chronicles, Second Chronicles, chapter 26. We are going to look about the life and the history about the King Uzziah, how successful he was, and what caused him to fall. Particularly, we are going to derive a particular subject: pride comes before fall. So I would like to request you haven't subscribed my YouTube channel yet. So I would request you to kindly subscribe it and press the bell icon so that you can get the latest update. So the story about Uzziah, we can classify his story into five sections, five parts. The first is Uzziah as a person, then Uzziah as a statesman, then Uzziah as politician, Uzziah as a military intelligence, and then last Uzziah as rebel. So first of all, we are going to see that how he was Uzziah as a person, the king Uzziah as a person. So we see his early life, his early career, that when he was 16 years old, he became king. He became king and he held almost the longest Judah's monarchy, all about almost 52 years. So as a person, he was dedicated towards his life, towards his commitment, for what he has been chosen. He knew very well that he is being chosen by the prophets at that time. He knew his calling. He knew that he has been called to take care of the nations, and that is how he became the king. He was the most successful king of the southern kingdom. So about his personal life, Uzziah as a person, the first very part in his life. In his early life, his early career, he was so victorious over all his enemies. He got victory over most of his battles when he fought. He strengthened his kingdom and improved the economic status of his nation. He improved the economic status of his nation. Okay, he strengthened even his kingdom, the southern kingdom. His father, King Uzziah. So, as a teen, he used to observe that how his father was dedicated towards God, and that the same actually lesson he also learned in his early life. He was actually dedicated to God. He has respect for the prophets. He has respect for the God's people. And that is what we can see. Even he had respect for God's messenger. We can see Zechariah at the time of God's messenger. He had really respect. He used to respect Zechariah. It shows in his part, Uzziah as a person, that he was completely dedicated. So King Uzziah as a person, he was dedicated towards God's law. He used to obey God's messenger. At the time of Zechariah, during his time, God's messenger used to really honor and respect Zechariah, God's messenger. He used to follow, he used to meditate on God's word. So he was very punctual. He was really obedient toward God. And that is how we can see his earliest life. And now we can see Uzziah as a state person. We can see about him that no politician could dream of a better tenure as a chief executive of a nation. Prosperity was enjoyed all over all the areas of his life. In his early life, in his early career, victorious all over enemies. He was victorious. Every battle he fought, most of battles he got victory. He strengthened his kingdom. He improved the economic status of his nation. During his monarchy, the nation enjoyed the bright spot in history, world history. So we can see that he, as a statesperson, he was a very successful man. He was good indeed as a person because he used to obey God's commandment. He used to respect God's messengers because his father, he used to observe as a very young age. He observed his father, King Uzziah, that how his father was dedicated to God, and similarly that same lesson, that same teachings he adopted from his father as a person. So he was successful. He was successful as a person. He was successful as a state person. We can see then as a politically Uzziah as a politician. Uzziah in his leadership resulted in amazing successes. His army were victorious. His projects and programs were successful. Whatever task he used to take in his hand, he used to get success. He was a very successful man at that time as a politician. He could do nothing wrong. What an enviable position he had. Whatever he did, he used to make sure that the things falls in order, things falls according to right justifications. So he used to make sure that nothing gets wrong on the way to success. So we can see that the bright spot in his history, world history, that area during his durations that people enjoyed a lot. So politician, he was a successful politician. As a military intelligence, an interesting fact about Uzziah, this is a very key fact about Uzziah that we learn, that the king was an intelligent military tactician. He was able to conceive constructive weapons. And during that very time, he was the most intelligent, military person that he used to even develop. He developed a lot of, invented a lot of weapons for his, war, so that he could get victory over his enemy. Everyone studied his maneuvers and learned brilliant strategies of warfare. He was such a brilliant man that his strategically was very brilliant, that every battle he fought, most of battles he got victory. That is what he's known for, military intelligence. Now the last part is in his life that Uzziah as a rebel. Now, how this actually very incident, the part of his history shifted towards the very fall. Now, what comes that he rebelled? He rebelled in what sense that we are talking about here? At the time actually when he entered in temple and he wanted to worship himself, he wanted to burn, essence by himself. He directly entered into the altar. So we see Uzziah as a rebel. What caused him to rebel against God's commandments? What happened that, at one incident, he entered into temple and he directly entered into the altar of God, where he offered himself incense. Now see, this is a very, a tragic point that shifted in his life, because the very offerings when used to offer in temple, there are particular segments of people, there are particular people, there are devoted people, there are chosen by God himself, by Yahweh himself, that only certain people can do such tasks, that only certain people can perform offerings. But what caused him actually that he entered into temple, he entered into the altar and he offered himself, incense to the God. At that very moment, that leprosy struck down him from his head to, throughout his, body there. Because God punished him. Because the offerings the offering supposed to perform by the descendant of Aaron. There are particular chosen generation separated by Yahweh, that only those people can have rights to offer, offerings. But he was being king, he was very successful man. Most of battles he fought, he got victory. He was, military, intelligent person. He organized his city, all the, he was a very strategical man. So what caused him? He no the thing is the pride, the very pride caused him to do such a thing. He knew that there is a law, there is things that God has separated certain people to perform such offerings. But the pride entered in his life, and he thought himself that, okay, I am being successful, I am being, excellent, I can do anything. So as I can even alter the very precepts what God has laid it down. The very commandment I can, improvise. I can make improvisation in the commandments. And that is what he went wrong. Dear friends, when we start obeying God, God gives us success. He gives us success, personally. We can see all throughout his Uzziah's life that as a person, he was very gentle man. His fame spread across Egypt. His fame spread across nations. He was very successful man. At the very age of 16, he became man. Almost 52 years he reigned over southern kingdom. He held the longest monarchy in Judah's kingdom. He was a successful politician. He built, cities. He built, big, kind of palaces. He was a military intelligence. So he held, a big army. He was such an invented man, such a brilliant man that he invented, and a lot of weapons so that he can have victory. But here is the point that he went wrong. Being successful man, the pride entered in his life, and that is where he went wrong. He forget that there is a law, there is a commandment that God has already been given, and there is a particular people, there is a particular race who are being actually chosen to do and to perform offerings. So he went wrong at that very moment, and that is where God punished him, and he became leper. Uzziah as a leper. So we can see the very tragic, shift has been taken in his life. And not only this, that he became only a leper, but sadly, that when all the king used to die and they used to bury at one place in the city, at a particular place, but he was the only one person among kingly line, kingly dynasty, that he buried outside of cities. He didn't have place at Judah's kingdom. All the kings who died, he didn't have that place to bury it at that very point. So that very shift has been taken. So we can see, friends, when we obey God, when we follow his commandment, God gives us victory. God gives us success. So success is not something that we achieve with our strength, with our brilliant mind, or with our education, but it is God who gives us success when we start obeying his commandment, when we start following his laws, when we start following his word. But the moment we think that, okay, now I'm in a position that I can change, I can improvise the very law, this is where the point that most of God's servants, they went wrong, and that is where that the very tragic part of the history been taken place, as we can see in the life of Uzziah. So dear friends, here is the moral of the story. When we follow God commandments, when we obey, God gives us a success. We can see the very life of Uzziah. But the moment pride enters in our life, there we fall. The destruction comes. So pride comes before fall. Pride comes before destruction. So we need to really observe, or do we have really that very pride, that very attitude? If we do have, then we need to really examine ourselves, our life. And if we have, then ask us, God, so that we may dependent upon Him, and we really follow His commandment, so that God may help us and bless us with success. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you.